All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Rocky Top Insider postgame show. This is Ryan Shumpert. I am Rick Butler, standing here on the court at Little Caesars Arena in Detroit, Michigan, where Tennessee's season comes to an end with an NCAA tournament loss in the Elite Eight to Purdue by a score of 72-66. A lot of things that went into this game. Maybe the biggest thing that was talked about was Zach Edey versus Dalton Knecht. Those two certainly showed out tonight. Really only two of the three double-digit scores in this game. It was a Dalton Knecht versus Zach Edey show.
Yeah, I mean, the two best players in the country, I think most would say. And
yeah,
I kind of did, going into that game, you get narratives like that, especially when the guys play different positions. Kind of like, this is silly. It's a team game to begin with, and it's, two guys that, again, aren't going to match up guarding each other really any during the game. But it kind of in some ways turned into that. And, I mean, you mentioned it, three guys in double figures all game. Fletcher Loyer for Purdue scored 14.
Yeah, and that third guy was not Tennessee's.
Yeah, no, 40 for Edey, 37 for
37.
Knecht. Just a game that Knecht was really, really good in the first half offensively. Hit some big shots in the second, but kind of went a little bit cold late. And Tennessee never really could get over that hump in the second half. I mean, they fell behind. They were down 2 at halftime. They fell behind. They made a couple of runs. I think tied it maybe a couple times, but never took the lead in the second half.
Yeah, Dalton Knecht, the SEC Player of the Year. We talked about it throughout. That's the type of guy that is built for March, and he did everything he could for Tennessee today. And he scores 37 points. He does go cold there in those last couple minutes, but he also joined a lot of Tennessee players that sort of were already cold in that moment. So it was a tough game for Tennessee, especially there at the end. Tennessee and Purdue have a little bit of a slugfest in the first half. Once you get to about that 8-9 minute mark left in the first half, Tennessee goes on a 15-2 run. But Purdue capitalized with a 15-2 run of their own on the other side of that, directly leading out of it to sort of get them a bit of momentum heading into halftime. I believe Purdue took that lead into halftime. Tennessee then took a lead quickly into the second half, I believe at the 19-minute mark, gave it back after that, and I don't believe Tennessee saw the lead for the rest of the game.
Yeah, no, I feel like that run into the half is really where it really cost Tennessee. And you jump out to a lead, you had a chance there, and some of it, Purdue got some downhill drives, some good steals by Edey that led to the easy layups. You had some bad turnovers for Tennessee, which was kind of a rarity and something that, we mentioned going into the game we're going to be big. The turnover battle, Tennessee, they went 10-7. Some, but not at a margin. It really felt like they were going to need to overcome the advantage that Purdue would have inside with Edey. So I think, to me, if you really want to point back at anything specific in the game or maybe a point of the game, that's where I'd point to. The end of the first half, I feel like we're Tennessee. You win into halftime if you're Tennessee down by 2. You had shot, I believe, 7 of 13 from 3. Purdue, who's the best three-point shooting team in the country, was 1 of 7. Purdue didn't even shoot great from 3 in the second half, but they just hit a couple more, and that obviously proved to be the difference.
You talked about Zach Edey's play in the interior, all the physicality, and I think that's what a lot of Tennessee fans are talking about coming out of this game, wanting to know sort of what happened from an officiating standpoint. Rick Barnes talked about after the game. He said, look, I'm not going to be the guy to directly go out there and blame the officials, but he did say that, hey, it's a hard game to officiate, and he was pointing that to Zach Edey. Ryan, I know you and I you can see all this in the background. I mean, the game just ended a couple of minutes ago, but what was your sort of immediate reaction to how that affected Tennessee in the game today? And was it to you maybe a differentiating factor?
The officiating itself?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's a hard guy to officiate. Tennessee.
And obviously it's always going to play a little bit of a factor.
Yeah.
So that is a leading question.
Tennessee, they fouled him a lot, I thought. And now there were some instances that some of the fouls were softer. I mean, I go look at, Walker, who I thought played well and fouled out. I can think of 3 of his fouls off the top of my head that I thought were either very, very soft or not fouls. And now not all of them were directly, at least this 5th one he fouled out right where we were standing on an offensive rebound, where I would go more at that end. I mean, Edey's called for 1 foul and playing 38 minutes, and I can think of 3 more off the top of my head where he clearly fouled people. So, some of it, Edey definitely got fouled a lot. There were a couple instances they called fouls on Tennessee on Edey. There weren't fouls, but I thought there were some instances where Edey pretty clearly got fouled and they didn't call it. So that side of it, it's tough to officiate. I didn't think it was anything crazy. It's more the other side where I'd go. I felt like Edey very obviously fouled a handful of times in this game, and he gets called for 1 in the end.
Yeah, I think you just kind of hit the nail on the head, right? Obviously, there were some fouls that could go either way, and certainly people are going to zone in on those, and those are the ones that incited a lot of people talking about on social media. But at the end of the day, too, it is a hard guy to guard. It is a 7-foot player in college basketball. I thought Rick Barnes made up a good point. how many others are there, right? Tennessee mentioned it during the players' press conference yesterday that, yes, SEC play and going up against different big men prepared them throughout the year, but Zach Edey is a little bit of a different animal at 7'4" and just what he can do with his back to the basket. So it'll obviously be something that people want to continue to talk about, but that's just kind of the way the game went.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it's not like it's anything specific to this game. I mean, Zach Edey's been playing college basketball for 4 years, and the way he's been officiated has been a big discussion, at least the last two, when he's really become a bona fide star. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes next week. And obviously, really neither team, Purdue's going to see in a semifinal game, I don't think has a whole lot like that inside. Though DJ Burns versus Edey would be a fun matchup.
Yeah.
If they run into Connecticut, obviously Donovan Clingan, I think, would be about as well equipped to handle them as anybody in the country.
Yeah. All right. Any other final thoughts on the game here as we wrap up here from Little Caesars Arena before just maybe a couple of thoughts on the season as a whole?
Yeah, no, I mean, I would say on the game itself, you didn't get enough help for Dalton offensively. Zakai didn't shoot the ball very well. I didn't think he was bad by any means as the game as a whole, but he wasn't at his best. Jonas Adu kind of no-showed. I mean, I felt like he kind of no-showed for Tennessee the whole last 6 weeks. I thought that was – we said it all year. Tennessee was going to be at its best when Jonas was at his best.
Yeah.
Jonas was not very good down the stretch of the season. And, Josiah Jordan-James, I thought, as a whole, did play well. And,
he started out on fire.
Yeah, we hear it a lot. People say, Tennessee fans, or, Josiah needs to be more aggressive offensively. And, a lot of times I've defended him, and it's like, when he's not making shots, why do you need him to be aggressive offensively when other guys are making shots?
Sure.
And you have guys like DK hitting shots. Tonight was a game I felt like Tennessee needed him to be more aggressive offensively. No one besides Dalton was playing particularly well, shooting particularly well offensively. He was shooting well, and he ends up, I think, taking one shot in the second half.
Yeah.
It felt like he needed to be more aggressive tonight, or maybe two shots, because I think he had a three there early in the second half that was big for Tennessee. Tonight was an instance where I felt like he needed to be more aggressive. I thought Jordan Gainey was big for Tennessee.
That stretch that he came in, I believe they cut the deficit to 1 there at some point in the second half. He had I believe a 2-point maybe shot right here. He created the transition.
I think
dunk
it was 2 threes that he hit.
Okay,
really.
he hit the 3, and then
transition dunk for Dalton.
Transition dunk for Dalton.
Yeah, he was good. I thought Tobe had battled. I think you got to give JP Estrella a lot of credit the way he battled against Edey as well. So those are kind of the things that I would point to for this specific game, and where Tennessee maybe needed more help or needed guys to step up.
Yeah. Tennessee's season comes to a close here in Detroit, but it was a remarkable and a memorable season for Tennessee nonetheless. Obviously, Dalton Knecht coming into the program just completely turned the tides for Tennessee. He gave Tennessee a bona fide first-team All-American who could score the basketball, which is something that they did not have. I got to say, just from having an up-close view to this team the whole year, it was fun sort of seeing just a different side of Tennessee come out. We've seen a lot of defensive-heavy basketball from Tennessee under the Rick Barnes system for a long time now, but then being able to add in a piece like Dalton Knecht, being able to add in a piece like Jordan Gainey who could come and shoot off the bench, it just really made the season a little bit more enjoyable as a whole to see what they could do with those components. So certainly it was a pleasure getting to cover this team, but make it all the way to the Elite Eight for just the second time since...
Second time ever.
First
time since 2010.
Okay, there you go. That's what I meant to say. First time since 2010. So a memorable season for Tennessee nonetheless. Josiah Jordan-James said after the game, he said, I can't necessarily put into words how much this pain is right now, but I also even more can't put into words just the joy that the university and the team have brought him as he was sort of in tears over that last 5 years. So just a couple of final takeaways. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great season for Tennessee. I think inarguably the best season in program history.
Sure.
I think it's a real example of, and then you decided to say this with Alabama too, it's a real example of March Madness and taking advantage of your opportunities. Tennessee was incredible this year, and they had an extremely hard path. Today, I mean, at the end of the day, I just felt like they lost to a better team today. I picked Purdue to win by 4. Purdue won by 6. Tennessee didn't play great, but I didn't point to thinking Tennessee played a bad game by any means. I think they just ran into a better team and lost to them, and they did that after playing the 7 seed in the second round, I thought they played maybe their best game in the season against Creighton in the Sweet 16. It was all very, very difficult. As you oppose that to Alabama, I thought that West region was really, really bad. Set it from the start. They played 2 double-digit seeds the first weekend to make it. They do upset, North Carolina, but North Carolina by far the worst 1 seed, and they beat a 6 seed in the Elite 8. It's just an example. You got to take it, and this is after Alabama's had 2 1 seeds or a 1 seed and 2 seed the last 3 years and have lost in the Sweet 16. It's about, March comes and you have these great teams and they face really tough paths and you lose games that you don't necessarily do anything all that bad in. to me, it's about taking advantage of your opportunities. And I think, if Rick Barnes never makes the Final Four at Tennessee, obviously this would be an easy team to point to. They made it to the Elite Eight. I'd point as much to 2018 when Tennessee lost in the round of 32 and had a wide open pass to the Final Four, or even to a lesser extent last year. I mean, I don't think last year's team was necessarily very great by the end of the year with Zakai Ziegler out with the torn ACL. And they did make it to the Sweet 16. They beat a Duke team no one really expected them to beat in the round of 32. But you had FAU, who was, an 8 or a 9 seed, and then a 7 seed or a 6 seed Kansas State. I can't remember what Kansas State was. Not a very – maybe they were a 3, but not a super unbeatable team in the Elite Eight. So that's some ramblings for me. But that's kind of one of the things that I think is a lesson about the NCAA tournament. And certainly when Tennessee's 2 best teams under Rick Barnes, they've had extremely hard paths in March.
Yeah, you say all that. Everywhere around us is one of these NCAA tournament logos with the words on it, March Madness. It's the madness. Yeah. It is the madness of March. But again, Tennessee's season comes to a close. The Tennessee Volunteers won the SEC regular season championship along the way, finished up with a 2 seed in the Midwest Regional, but fell to to 1 seed Purdue here in the Elite Eight. It's going to wrap it up for us. Hey, thank you to everybody who has watched and listened throughout the season. We really appreciate you following along. We obviously got a lot of baseball stuff coming up next. Yeah. Tennessee baseball just had a series win against Georgia right back in Knoxville. So we got to jump back to that. Spring football going to be around the corner. And then before we know it, you and I are going to be back on the road and at home for SEC football coming up with Tennessee. So still a lot to get to, but either way, thank you so much for making the Rocky Top Insider postgame show part of your postgame experience after every game. This is Ryan Shumpert. If you want to follow him, you can do that at rshump00. If you want to follow myself, you can do that at Rick_Butler. But otherwise, we're going to head out back to work, get you some of this postgame analysis from Tennessee's loss to Purdue. This is Ryan Shumpert. I'm Rick Butler. Thanks for listening to the Rocky Top Insider postgame show.